Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Welcome to Mom and Dad Are Fighting, Slate's parenting podcast for Monday, September 11th. I'm Zak Rosen. I host another show. It's called The Best Advice Show, and I am dad to Noah, who is 6, and Ami, who is going to be 3 really soon. We live in Detroit.
I'm Elizabeth Newcamp. I write the homeschool and family travel blog, Dutch Goose. I'm the mom of 3 littles, Henry, who's 11, Oliver, who's 9, and Teddy, who's 6. We live in Tokyo, Japan.
I'm Jamilah Lemieux. I'm a writer, contributor to Slate's Care and Feeding Parenting column, and mom to Naima, who is 10, and we live in Los Angeles.
Today on the show, we have an interesting question about allowance. Our letter writer has had enough of her young child asking for things every time they go out. She's wondering if an allowance might help. We've got some thoughts. Then we'll answer a very common but important question. How do you balance life as a working parent? Then we'll wrap up today with a round of recommendations. But let's start with our question.
Hi, Mom and Dad Are Fighting. I would love to know your feelings about allowances. My 4.5-year-old wants to buy all sorts of new things. Trucks, books, stuffies, new clothes. And sometimes we'll treat him to new things, but he mostly gets presents for Hanukkah and his birthday. It kind of makes me think that our kiddo might be ready for an allowance so he can save up and buy things occasionally. But I have so many questions. What's the right amount of money for a 4-year-old? Does he always get an allowance, or is it tied to chores? Also, introducing the concept of earning money does kind of feel complicated. So what advice do you have about how I should be talking to my kid about money at this age? Thanks so much, Moneybags.
I have some very strong thoughts about allowance.
Hit it.
I do not think that allowance should be tied to like household chores or things that you do as a family, because I think it sets up this idea that you should get paid for doing some of those things. And I have to caveat that with saying, like, we all know that I have paid my children to do things. I continue to pay my children. Here in Japan, I am paying them to try new foods. Like, I am literally offering them money to put food in their mouth.
Wait. Just quickly, what is
How does that work?
The weirdest thing they've tried, and how much have they earned?
I mean, to be clear, I don't always know what we're trying, but we went to this restaurant, we ordered some fish. It came out like half tempura, half sashimi. So like raw. And I was like, anyone that swallows one of these raw things can have 100 yen. And they all put it in their mouth and swallowed it. 2 of them said they would do it again. I said, would you do it again, without being paid? I'm not paying for the second time, and 2 of them did. So I feel like it's working. But so this to say, money can be a great motivator. But I think that in this case, if you start tying it to doing things that have to do with household chores, so, you only make this money if you clear the table. You only make this money if you make your beds, things like that, that you end up in a situation where they feel that helping or caring for the home, like your space that you're all sharing, is something that they should be paid for. And in my opinion, those are things that we do to exist as a family. So there are jobs that we do that you are not paid for, but we do because we want to be a functional family. So I think whether you do it or not is maybe something someone else is going to answer. But I think that allowance should be a tool for teaching money and how to use money and how to have, save, spend, share money. It should not be tied to these basic chores. You can certainly add them to extra chores. I have done that, allowed the kids to pick up like quote unquote jobs around the house for some of these bigger jobs that I would not assign to them or that don't need to be done daily, weekly. But really, I think you can get, and I've seen friends get into trouble by mingling these like daily chores with money. So I think I'll start there. I have more to say, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you are.
I agree that allowance shouldn't be directly connected to doing things around the house. The kids should just get in the habit of being a contributor to the household and realize that that's their obligation and they're not going to get paid for it. I don't know how I feel about a 4-year-old getting allowance. I think there's a time in a child's life where you should just get to enjoy the magic of your parents buying you stuff. Like I wanted a thing and I got the thing, and I wanted the thing and I didn't get the thing. It doesn't mean that you buy them everything that they want or that they're constantly getting new things. But I think on occasion, it's fine to just say, here's a new stuffy because you wanted a new stuffy, I suppose you could practice giving them money so they can save up. I just feel like at 4, that's just going to be such a difficult concept to comprehend anyway. And like by the time they've saved up for something, are they even still interested in it anymore? Like I would just like, I mean, money is just such an evil, terrible, difficult part of our existences. And I think that it's okay for a very little person to not have to worry about it, to just, I want things and sometimes I get them.
I agree. Like Ami asked me about money the other day. I'm trying to remember the context, but he asked me what money was, and I almost started crying. Like, do I need to start explaining this shit to you? You're not even 3. I'm interested in what you two think about, like, okay, if you're not, because my allowance growing up was always tied to my chores, putting my laundry away and taking out the garbage and later mowing the lawn. Those were the kind of trifecta. If your kids aren't contributing to the domestic work in your house, are you withholding that cash?
Well, I think that's the problem, like with tying it to things, is that it, one, robs you of the opportunity to teach money, which I will say with the older kids, giving them, so we just like give the kids money. Like the kids get money and we are learning to manage money. So like allowance in our house is like, this is your weekly allotment and these are the things that you are responsible for paying for, right? That you can use your money on. Like we were really clear about the things like we provide and the things that they provide. I just think it gets really sticky when you have to withhold money. Like, what if they technically do the chore, but it's not good enough, right? Like, I just think there are things like that become really sticky and stop you from being able to teach kids about money, about what it feels like. Like, I feel good that my 11-year-old has at some point spent all his money and then wanted something and knew that he had spent it on something he didn't really care about, right? Like he's made a bunch of bad purchases, but he's done that now. And so now as a result of that, he is a real saver with his money because he is understanding the value of it, right? And we can be some guidance to that. Have you you don't tie yours to chores, Jamilah, right?
No. Yeah. Naima doesn't get an allowance. She gets money here and there. She usually has money left over from her birthdays, but she doesn't get an allowance yet at this point. I've thought about it, but she also has most of her little needs met, and she's not really like going out with friends to the mall yet, or going with someone else's mom to the movies. It's so rare that she needs money. Mm-hmm. But she's starting to take an interest in it. So I don't know. Maybe it's time for me to start thinking about it seriously because she likes to buy things online. Yeah. And she's constantly asking about, can I have a cash? She has a Cash App account and one of her grandmothers gives her money there sometimes. But she's always asking, can I have a bank account? Can I, Mm-hmm. So it's time. The topic of money scares me. I'm not good with it. It stresses me out. So I think that's part of the reason that I haven't done more to really educate her about it. I know she's done more education about it from her father, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. I did a little research. I went to credit.org, which is this independent nonprofit financial counseling agency. And they gave some tips for if you are going to start giving allowance. One of the things they said was don't give them advances because by not giving them advances, you're teaching them to like spend carefully. And spend within their means, which I thought was smart. And they also suggested if you're figuring out like how much to give your kid, let them make their age is like a rule of thumb they suggest, which feels reasonable to me. Like for your 4-year-old, $4 a week, $16 a month. I mean, that can buy some gumballs. They actually do think that tying the allowance to your child's household obligations is a good idea, though I totally hear what you're saying, Elizabeth, and kind of I don't really know where where I fall there because we haven't started to do this yet with Noah. But yeah, it's such an interesting thing because it's not just about allowance. Once we start giving our kids allowance, right? Like this is, you're kind of saying like, welcome to capitalism, which is such a complicated thing.
I want to, circle back to Jamilah talking about being 4, because I agree that this is too young and that some of what you need to be teaching at 4 in respect to money is that stuff costs money. We get money by working and it's not infinite, right? And learning, I think at those ages, you're almost teaching this, like, we don't buy something every time we go to the store lessons, but sometimes we can get things, right? And that I will always, like, I'm here to meet your needs. I think, though, that is what you're teaching about money at 4. And just kind of getting down the, like, hey, we looked at this thing at the store. This is super cool. I know when my kids were that age, and still for Teddy, like, we still think he's largely too young for, like, money buying power. Like I said, I am paying them to do things they don't want to do.
To eat raw fish. Sure.
Yes. I've given many examples of things I've paid the children to do on this podcast. But having them say, like, hey, would you like to add this to your birthday list? And I just keep a little list on the phone of things they've asked me to for birthday, for Christmas, for those times when people ask about gifts. And then periodically we review that. And I also think that's good for them to see, like, hey, remember we were walking through that store and you wanted this thing, but now 4 weeks later or 2 months later, you don't even know what that is. Like, I think that is a good lesson. Something all of my kids really enjoyed at around this age was Elmo has like a saving, spending, sharing. At the time that Henry was growing up, it was a podcast, which might still exist. It is definitely a YouTube video called Elmo's 3 Jars. I love it. He basically, as he gets money, puts them into a saving jar, saving, spending, and sharing jar, and it goes into like what is in each of those. And I think that is a great structure for sort of beginning to understand money, that like it's okay to have some that we spend on things that we kind of want. I want that, walking home, I want that ice cream or pizza or whatever, I think is the example they use. But we also want to be saving some for bigger things or for rainy days. And then we also like want to have some that we can share, like be that a charity or buying a gift for a friend. And I think listening to that really young, so like at 3, 4, 5, just sort of set up this concept, because as the kids are making money, we have put it in a bank account, and they can check the account on our, like on the phone or on the app. And we always talk about how like, well, a third of that is essentially what they actually have to spend.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off of what Jamilah was saying about like 4 is still a time when it's like fun just to buy your kids some stuff. My rule of thumb, like, because Noah will inevitably, like, we're at the drugstore and she'll like pick up some crappy toy and like look all cute and like not quite ask me, but like hold it in front of her. And I think I say no like 4 out of 5 times or 8 or 9 out of 10 times. So like it is fun to do the spontaneous, sure, let's get it. But like it's such an exercise too, in just like saying no to your kids and in your kids learning to take no for an answer. Like I think that's probably more important than like the occasional, trinket that you do by them. So as long as you're like doing a lot of that, I think in between the sporadic purchase, I think like that's probably helpful.
Well, and for kids, it's so like, because we're not really dealing in cash that much, I think these little ones don't always understand, right? Like we take the stuff to a counter, we like tap our card, and then we get the stuff. Like it is not very tangible. And I think tying the like, this came out of, our account and it's actual money, and I'm going to exchange this for the goods is something that a 4 or 5-year-old can start to grasp.
Well, Moneybags, we hope this helps. We would also love to know how other listeners are approaching allowances and money talk in general. If you have any tips or tricks to share, email us at momanddad@slate.com or send us a voicemail at 646-357-9318. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back here with another question.
This episode is brought to you by KiwiCo. Some of my favorite family memories are when we're all doing something together, where the kids and I have equal experience. Like maybe I'm slightly better at reading the directions, but largely none of us know what we're doing. Well, each month, KiwiCo can deliver a crate packed with fun and and sparks of creativity with kid-friendly topics and activities. Henry recently got a kit where he built a foaming hand soap dispenser, and it involved all different kinds of parts and using real tools. But what I love about it is it sits in our bathroom now. I also love that the booklets come with sort of other things you can do. So there's always these extension projects because Henry's getting faster and faster at being able to build these things. So now there's other projects and skills we can learn from that project. Redefine learning with play. Explore hands-on projects that build creative confidence and problem-solving skills with KiwiCo. You can get 50% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line at kiwico.com/momanddad. That's 50% off your first month at kiwico.com/momanddad.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Hey listeners, whether you love true crime or comedies, celebrity interviews, news, or even motivational speakers, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue, right? And guess what? Now you can call the shots on your auto insurance too. Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool puts you in charge of your auto insurance by working just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, then they'll show you a variety of coverages that fit within your budget, giving you options. Now that's something you'll want to press play on. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to choose the best option for you, fast. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive Insurance. Quote today at Progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself and join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. As a parent, you want to set your kid up for success. K-12 can help your child start reaching their full potential in life now with online education options tailored to their unique needs, interests, and schedules. And there's still time to get started this year. K-12 powered schools are tuition-free, online accredited public schools for kindergarten through 12th grade. This is not your typical homeschooling where parents are responsible for teaching their children. K-12 powered schools have state-certified teachers trained in online education. And there's an online portal that gives parents daily insights into curriculum and performance. K-12's hands-on innovation technology makes learning interactive and engaging, helping your child gain skills, experience, and certifications, all before graduating high school. Help your child gain the skills they need to thrive in the future with K-12. There's still time to get started for the fall. Go to k12.com/momanddad today to learn more and find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you. That's the letter K, the number 12.com/momanddad. K12.com/momanddad. We're back and ready to hear our second question.
Hey, Mom and Dad. How do working parents manage to actually make sure their kids get to see their friends? My husband and I both work 40 hours a week when we're lucky. We have a school-age kid and a toddler. And I'm starting to get this nagging feeling that our unavailability, especially during the after-school period, is starting to impact our kids' social lives. Our elementary school kid is in before and after school care during the school year. And even when we do have the time to potentially host playdates, our condo is really small and it has no outside space, and quite honestly, when we're done with cleaning and shopping and all the other errands, there's barely time for us to do anything. We also have this dog who's good with us, but kind of bad with everyone else. It's complicated. I've been looking around to figure out how other people do this, and my mom was a teacher, my sister's a teacher, most of my other mom friends are teachers or in education, so they have the summers off. So I don't really have a model on how to balance this, so any advice would be appreciated. Thanks, working parents.
I can relate to this. I once worked a very demanding job, and there were very few play dates during that time. It's something that you just, to the best of your ability, you make time for, You don't have to host them in your house. You can go to the park. You can go for ice cream. I think people think of play dates as being these long, epic adventures, but you can really just go get ice cream. It's just it's just about getting some quality time with one of your friends outside of the school environment. You can go to the playground. You can go to a movie. I understand that when you're done with the cleaning and the shopping, there really isn't time to do anything else as a family in the weekend, but you need to make time for your child to have friends outside of the family, So you could say maybe once a month. It doesn't have to be an all the time sort of thing. That on a Sunday afternoon, once you've done your grocery shopping and your laundry, that you'll commit to taking your child somewhere to go hang out with one of their friends for an hour or two. It's just a matter of prioritizing something like this. And you'll be surprised that it's, easier than you think. And also, once you get into a rhythm of having play dates with other parents, sometimes these other parents will be taking your child. So you may have the opportunity to drop your child off at a friend's house, and then you can go grocery shopping or meet up with them somewhere, and you can bring a book and get some reading done for work. But it's worth the sacrifice. It's worth the sacrifice. And also, like, as somebody who grew up in a really small apartment, like a 1-bedroom apartment, and the older I got, I didn't want to have friends over because I was embarrassed at how small our place was. I think of when I was younger and when I had friends over, I had a blast. It didn't matter that I didn't have a big space. Mm-hmm. I was just happy to have my friend there playing with me. I think you'd be surprised that kids are not sitting around counting the square footage in your condo, or regretting that there's no outdoor space. If there's a place for them to sit down and play a board game or to draw some pictures, they will be pleased. But I understand the dog issue. You do have to be mindful of that.
I completely agree with Jamilah that you just have to make this fit in somehow, some way, even if that means things are less tidy or you're, getting a little bit less errands done or things like that. Like, where can you let some things go to have your school-age child, have some time with friends? I think don't pass by to the opportunity to, like, drive a friend from place A to place B, right? Like, if you have someone that's going the same way, I don't know, my kids have a great time if we can just, like, have another kid in the car, chatting, like, getting some of that friendship time. Is there, an opportunity where you can just soak up the, like, 10, 20 minutes, even just like 30 minutes between activities where you can, say like, oh, well, I can just like watch her help move this kid from point A to point B, or we have this weird gap time between school or whatever where you can supervise at a park, something like that. And I do think the more you do that, the more like those offers will come too. Ask a friend like, hey, we'd love to watch her while you, this friend, like while you go grocery shopping. Like, I think those are really like helpful, but also really fun and really limited time, play dates.
Yeah. I think there's something fundamentally vulnerable about reaching out to someone in your community and asking them for help, asking them to watch your kids. But I think that it is entirely worth it. The first time we had Ami go to a neighbor's house was this summer, because I was out of town working and Shira had a work thing. And he has a friend across the street who's his age. We thought, like, is he ready to do this? He hasn't done this before. And we asked them, can you watch him for a while? And they did. It went well. And it just really opened up this this world of sharing, sharing labor with the neighbors. And you might not even need to find someone their age. Like, if there's like a cool, older person in your condo complex, like, this is going to make their week. If your kid is comfortable with them and vice versa, like, there is a world in which the elderly guy who lives downstairs, can teach your kid how to play bumper pool, while you're at work. And, I think if you get over that initial hump of asking for help, you can certainly return the favor, by, say it is a scenario where it's not your kid going to another kid's house, it's going to this elderly person's house. Like, they watch your kid, you cook them dinner, you have them over. So like, I think that there is so much potential when you just kind of realize that there is a kind of a reciprocal aspect of, like, your kids are going to light up someone's day, and you can do something in return, depending on the context and scenario and stuff.
That's a good idea.
I want to mention, every time we say, like, ask someone for help, do this, someone will inevitably write in and be like, I did ask, and the person said no, and it was terrible, and I was embarrassed. And I want to say to those of you thinking, that's what happened to me, like, first, that sucks, and I'm sorry. And two, like, not everyone has the capacity to say yes, but just because someone said no does not mean that you should not ask someone else. If the person said no, they're either a terrible person or they don't have the capacity to say yes, right? And that just wasn't meant to be your person. But I would hate to think that because you reached out to one person and they said no, that you don't reach out to someone else. I'm looking at the letter, and you're talking about like how all the mom friends are like teachers. So one, if they're teachers and they're telling you that they have time over the summer, right, or they have this particular time, that's a time to reach out to them. But what you could do for them is offer to take their kid in the morning, right? Like they're getting into school or whatever time. Go for a half hour early and watch their kid on the playground or hang out there. Like there are ways to be helpful for this. Like for this scenario where you can also be helpful to them and get your kid some time. And I think then feel better about saying over the summer, like, hey, I still work, but, you know, my kid would love to play with your kid. Is that something that you could facilitate? You know, and if they say no, they say no, and it's okay. Like, you're not a bad person because you asked.
No, it's really good. It's really good practice to ask, I think.
And playdates make kids so happy, you know, like, I mean, my daughter, who has not had a ton of them, she had one recently and she was just over the moon. You know, like it reminds me how important it is to make time to do this because she was just so overjoyed. It was one of her best friends from school and it was their first time hanging out together outside of school. And they were just dancing and singing and had an absolute blast. You know, you'll find that it is worth the sacrifice. It's just a sacrifice that you have to make. It's part of the job. You know, we have to make sure that our children are having positive social interactions. You know, we can't leave it entirely up to the school.
There's nothing like hearing two kids sitting in the other room just like laughing over something so stupid that is just like, and you know that there's not time to do that at school. Like, there's just not that like safe, unstructured time to just be silly about things.
Yeah. Well, working parents, please let us know how it goes. Other listeners, we know there's a lot of you out there who are balancing this too. Who isn't? What advice do you have for our listener? Email us at momanddad@slate.com or send us a voicemail at 646-357-9318.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
From 20th Century Studios and New Regency, The Creator, only in theaters September 29th.
Like it or not, humankind will end.
We should never have let AI out of the box.
From the director of Rogue One.
Did you locate the weapon?
This can't be right.
She's just a kid.
My name is Alfie. You're my friend?
She dies with the rest of them.
I can't do that.
The Creator. Experience the movie event only in theaters September 29th. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Get tickets now.
All right, let's move on to recommendations. Jamilah, what are you recommending this week?
Hey, don't have a kid-friendly recommendation this week. I have recently become obsessed with Curb Your Enthusiasm.
All right.
I know it's not a new show. It's something that I've watched here and there over the years, but never really stuck with. I knew I liked it. But I have been binging it the last few weeks. I think I'm up to season 6 and I'm obsessed with it. It's so offensive. It's so ignorant. But it is just a really funny show and it's great. You know, if you're like me and you need something to go to sleep, it's a good go to sleep show.
I love Curb and I don't think it gets better than those first 6 seasons.
Yeah.
But there's inevitably something hilarious that happens each episode. I think the problem with later Curb is that Larry, I mean, to begin with, he's he can be grating, but like I think early on in the series, I kind of empathized with his moral compass, but as the show goes on more, he just kind of becomes like an out of touch, bizarro guy. But
yeah,
the first couple seasons I think are as good as anything ever. I'm excited for you, Elizabeth.
Okay, my life here is a mess, and we almost always have like a command center place to keep track of everything, which I can't really do here. But a friend recommended getting a fridge calendar, and I found this lovely. It's like acrylic. It's so nice. I have a magnetic fridge here, and it is like 2 parts. One is like your normal calendar, but the other is kind of this weekly checklist, and it has been like the one organized little spot that's perfect. And just being able to write like which uniforms the kids need to be in, what needs to be done each day, who's where, up in a place where we can all see it. But I don't always love how messy calendars are. And this one is just so great. And, it's dry erase. And so we can change it each month. It's been just really helpful. Really still looks very neat. So if you don't have a little command center or you're looking for one, I'm really enjoying this fridge calendar.
Nice. I have a book recommendation. I guess it would be considered a YA book, but I'm reading it myself. I had the goal of reading it with Noah, but that hasn't worked quite yet. It's by one of my favorite authors, Dave Eggers. It's his latest. It's called The Eyes and the Impossible. And it is a book entirely from the perspective of a dog named Johannes who lives in a park. I feel like it's like based on like Golden Gate Park. I said Golden Gate Bark. Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. It's beautifully told. It's kind of like parable in tone, but it's also hilarious. I found myself laughing out loud the other day. The cover is like actually it's like wood bound with this beautiful engraving of a tree. Dave Eggers always puts out like beautiful aesthetic. Like the book itself is often gorgeous. He's the founder of McSweeney's and The Believer. But I'm always here for his work. He wrote The Circle, heartbreaking work of staggering genius. You shall know our velocity. But this new, it's very fun to read, and I'm hoping one day that like Noah will want to sit with me and read this. But for now, I'm enjoying it myself, and I am not a young adult. All right. This episode of Mom and Dad Are Fighting is produced by Rosemary Belson and Maura Curry. Alicia Montgomery is VP of Slate Audio for Elizabeth Newcamp and Jamilah Lemieux. I'm Zak Rosen. Thanks for listening.
It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payer's funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Heidecker. You know me, Tim and Eric, Bridesmaids, and Fantastic Four. I'd like to personally invite you to listen to Office Hours Live with me and my co-hosts, DJ Doug Pound.
Hello.
And Vic Berger.
Howdy.
Every week we bring you laughs, fun, games, and lots of other surprises. It's live. We take your Zoom calls.
Music.
We love having fun. Excuse me?
Songs. Vic said something.
Songs.
Music.
I like having fun. I like to laugh. I like to meet people who can make me laugh. Please subscribe